Hey everyone, welcome back or new coming in. Welcome to my channel. My name is Victor, and for today's video, I really want to focus on now getting into the meat and potatoes of this beginner's guide is all about, which is how to do an actual tarot reading. So, because there is a lot that goes into it and there is a lot of information that goes into this, I am actually going to split this part into three. Just because there's a lot of elements that go into this, and then it also plays into people's personal styles. And I just want to make sure that I cover the basics of each one of those things. So this way you start to be more comfortable and you start to be feeling very prepared when you jump into this. Now, with that said, this first part I think is the most essential of all of the parts. If you decide to skip part 2 and part 3, that's completely fine, because this is the part where we're going to cover over the core things that need to occur, whereas part 2 and part 3 are more of building blocks upon what we're going to cover today. That can either fit more with your style, or it can be something that you just don't want to deal with, and that's completely fine. And just as a little bit of a preview on part 3, the big thing that we're going to do there is that we're going to have you practice a reading outside of just doing yourself, where I know maybe asking to do readings for other people can be a little intimidating for some people, especially if you're shy like myself. So I would feel comfortable on just kind of doing a reading where you can just flip cards for me, where I will pose some questions, and then you guys can figure out what cards you're drawing, what kind of stories are you getting, and then at the end of the video, I'll just reveal some of the answers to the questions that I had, and just kind of seeing how accurate you were, or maybe there were some things that I didn't share that perhaps you caught in the cards. So that should be pretty exciting. Okay, so without further ado, if you are really enjoying the content that I am sharing here, especially with this beginner's guide, I do have a Twitch channel, Victor_Lancaster, and in there I usually do tarot readings for free for people on Sundays. So feel free to come by, check it out, and just say hi, and we'll be more than welcoming to have you there. But other than that, let's get started. First and foremost, before we get anything going, before you start flipping cards, before you even start shuffling, it is very, very important that you have the right mood. So very similar to kind of how I have something here, this is just my personal space for me to be in the mood and for me to feel really focused and concentrated into what I'm actually going to do with the tarot readings. It is very important for you to cut out anything that's going to be very distracting to you, or things that can pull away from your attention, just so you can give 100% focus into the reading that you're going to do and the cards that you're about to pull. Because there may be a lot of things that your gut may be trying to tell you, maybe your spirit guides may be coming through. They're trying to communicate in some sort of way. And so the less distractions that you have, the better it's going to be for you to receive that communication and for you to have a better sense of how to read the cards that you're about to draw. Especially when you read cards, even when I'm 100% focused, sometimes it doesn't come very easily. Sometimes they just come up very jumbled, and it's very hard for me to even interpret when I'm 100% focused. So I can only imagine when you have a lot of different distractions. To cover some distractions, so for example, if you have your cell phone going off, if you have like a lot of noise coming from the outside, if people are coming in and out of the room a lot, things of that nature, you want to avoid at all costs. Setting music for the right mood for you to stay focused is very acceptable, but if music distracts you, then that kind of beats the purpose. Meditate if you have to. That's always a really great tip for you to kind of get into the mode, be very zen, and for you to really start to get in that mood. Perhaps you cannot really focus until you have a nice breakfast before you have your morning coffee, right? Those are things that you want to do, so this way you are 100% prepared going into this. And keep in mind that because this is more for a beginner oriented, as you gain more practice, there are some of these things that you don't have to follow as close, but because you're still trying to figure yourself out and how things work for you, The less distractions, the better. Now, the next thing that I do want to cover is now you have the correct mood, the correct headspace for you to start diving into this. Let's go and quickly talk about shuffling, because you can shuffle in many different ways. There are 3 ways that really stick out to me for the most part, although I'm sure there are more. Is when you decide to do shuffle, you can do it in many different ways. Just choose whatever is more comfortable to you, and that also takes care of the cards. For example, in this very first one that I'm showing right here, with this particular shuffling, you're just sitting cards in each particular stack, just kind of putting one in each one, and then you're resetting the pattern over again. Because you are doing that, the cards are not going to be in the same order, they're going to be shuffled up. And then once you are done shuffling those cards, you can go ahead and you can start stacking them together so you can form your deck. And you can do that as many times as you want. The important thing is that we want to make sure that the cards are thoroughly shuffled, and this is one way to do it. Also, if you are not a huge fan of doing reverse cards, then this is a really great way for you to make sure that all your cards are facing the correct direction versus doing like a normal shuffle. The second type of shuffling is the side shuffle. So that's when you take your cards, you have them in your hand, and then you take a stack of them, and then you just go start shuffling from the side. You just are picking up a certain amount of cards, and then you're dropping some in the front, pick it up, and then drop some more onto the front again, and just keep doing that until you don't have any more cards held in the other one. And then you repeat that process over and over again. And you can pick up the cards from the original stack that you have, from the middle, from the back, from the front, however you want. This is something that's very commonly used, especially because tarot cards are larger than regular playing cards. So if you have smaller hands, sometimes you cannot just do a normal shuffle. So it's really good to have the ability to do a side shuffle as an alternative when you just want to do cards. Now, keep in mind that as you do some side shuffling, there may be some cards that kind of flip over or that fly out. Some readers really like that because that's the spirit guides or whoever is trying to communicate come through by picking out those cards that are flying off. They usually tend to be very important for them to read, and sometimes you just put them aside to involve in the reading. If that's something that you like and that's something that's very interested to you, then you can go ahead and do that. If not, then just take the card, put it back, and then just keep shuffling away. And then the third shuffle is a little bit messy, but I'm pretty sure we've seen kids do this many times. But with this particular shuffle, you just kind of are taking all your cards, almost doing like a 78 card pickup. You're keeping them all face down. You kind of just move them around, just get them all messy, and then you just kind of put them all together. Now, keep in mind, doing this method might show some cards reversed. If you're not okay with that, even when you're drawing cards from the top of the deck, you can always just put them on the right side and you don't have to worry about it. Again, shuffling has to be with whatever you feel the most comfortable. For me, personally, I like just doing a regular riffle shuffle. I usually like to handle my cards in a way that I can just shuffle them like regular playing cards. If the card quality does not allow me for me to be that harsh with the cards, then I can just go ahead and do one of the 3 methods that I just talked about. Now it's time to draw. So now this is the part. This is the big moment. How do we read the cards now? So first thing I want to do is that even before you flip the first card, and even while you are shuffling, it is very important for you to have a question in mind. Now, if you're just trying to go through your day and just trying to do a 1 card pull like I talked about in my last video, you don't have to have a question in mind. But if you're going to be drawing multiple cards, or there's a particular question you have in mind, then you want to make sure you kind of are saying this question out loud, that you understand what the question is, and that we are shuffling as we go ahead and ask this question. And asking the question is very, very important, especially in the way that you phrase it. My very first tip when it comes to asking questions is you want to make sure that your questions are not negative. Now, what do I mean by not negative? So, leaving out negative types of questions can be really beneficial to make sure that we are trying to draw a good, energetically aligned type of reading where we want to make sure that we're kind of putting everything correct. We're trying to make sure that we are influencing everything with a positivity rather than negativity because of laws of attraction, which I can cover in a different video. But for this purpose, instead of asking questions like, will I get back together with my ex? Would my coworker get fired? Should I change career? I think these are questions that are not necessarily very positive. And perhaps if that's something within the realm that you want to know, put something positive within that question, add some context, and then ask in a positive manner. For example, I am really missing my ex. Is there a way for us to have a positive relationship? That's a little bit different. Also, when we look at will my coworker get fired, you can do something instead like, I've been having a lot of work dumped on me by my coworker. Is there anything I can do to have my boss have my back? Again, you're trying to make it positive rather than get my coworker fired. Or even with the last one is, I don't feel like my current career is aligned with my goals. Are there any good career possibilities that I can switch to? Those are really good questions for you to ask to make sure that you're not steering into the negative aspect of it, but you're trying to steer more into the positive effects of what you are looking for, a positive outcome for you and your life and everything around you. Question in mind, we're pulling cards, we're drawing them, and now we get to set them down. I'm gonna use for this particular example just a 3-card spread just to make things a lot easier for everybody. So for this first card that we have pulled, we have the Fool card. Now, this is my favorite card, and we're just going to use this as an example. So, we have the Fool, we have the Ace of Cups, and we have the 10 of Wands. So, we pull these cards. Nothing really sticks out to me. What do I do? So, the first thing that I would do is try to go off from what the pictures are trying to tell you. Look at each card individually and try to really tell apart what each card is trying to tell you personally. For example, if you look at the Fool card, what kind of symbols are you pulling from it? What aspects of the picture is it calling out to you? Is it a particular mood that is speaking to you? Is it perhaps the weather? Is it perhaps the colors? Is it the imagery, the background? What about the card is speaking to you? Is it the dog that is trying to do the warning sign? Is it the happy demeanor of the Fool? Well, we can even look at the Ace of Cups. What part of this card does it stick out to you? Is it water that is flowing out of the cup? Is it the peace-loving dove that is coming out from it, extending an olive branch? Is it the hand that is holding the cup upright? Is it the clear sky that we see in the background? What aspects of this card are really sticking out to you? Really take your time to look through these cards and to figure out what about them speaks out to you. Now, Victor, nothing about these cards speak out to me. I've been staring at them for 5 minutes and there is nothing that really tells me about them. Nothing is really sticking out. It just seems blank to me. There is another method, which is the second part that we're going to cover, is going off from the meanings that are in the book. I usually recommend the first method to start things off, but if nothing is really coming to you and you cannot expect it to come every single time, you can go from the definitions of what these cards stand out. Now, something to keep in mind is that when you do it this way, you can fall into this trap that every time if nothing speaks to me, then I'm always going to turn back into what the meaning is by the book. And of course, when you buy your deck, it can come with a little booklet that can tell you and show you what each card meaning is, some keywords that stand out about the card, and things of that nature. And you can try to do your story of what these cards are telling you based on that. The problem with that is that sometimes we can get a little bit too rigid when it comes to the card meanings. So when you go into this second step on how to read the card, I want you to be fully aware that this particular card in this particular draw is not going to mean the same thing when you pull it on the next time. One, because it's a different day, they're different energies, it's a combination of different cards, it's a different question. There's everything that is different. So if the card comes up again, don't say, for example, the 10 of Wands says it's all about stress and I am getting overworked. Oh my goodness, this cannot be good. When we're asking something completely different, when we're looking at the card again, you cannot say the same thing again. Oh my gosh, you are overworked. I am stressed. What is happening? because that card can have a different meaning the next time around it comes. So I just want you to be fully aware about this second method and some of the pitfalls that can come from it. Now you've taken a chance to look at the book reading of what some of these cards are. For example, we have the Fool card. On the Fool card, it's about starting a new journey. It's about avoiding the recklessness. It's about avoiding pitfalls. It's about being bright and sunny. Again, every card is going to have both positive connotations and it's going to have negative ones as well. So it can be a little bit tough to try to decipher just from the book definitions alone. And this is the third method, and this is the utmost important thing, even above 1 and 2. And actually, 1 and 2 is based on this third one, which is going off from your gut feeling or your intuition. Because at the end of the day, reading tarot is all about your intuition. It's about what you're picking up and what your gut is telling you. Because a lot of the times when messages need to come through, especially in tarot, they're going to come through in this particular way. What does your gut tell you? What are the thoughts that are populating into your mind? Does what I'm about to say feel right? Does this message sound accurate to you, even though you may have no context about what the person is asking you about? And that's going to triumph above these other 2 steps. In fact, they're all interwoven together, where if your gut is telling you, hey, this part of the definition sounds right for what you're asking. Oh, and this other thing about the card that really stood out to you on the artwork, that also makes sense with what you're trying to define here. Put it all together in that kind of a manner. For example, if we look at the Ace of Cups, when we look at this particular card, we can see, you know what? The cups, because if the nature of the suit is about emotions, sometimes it can deal with relationships. Sometimes it can be an emotional journey that we're about to embark on. Okay, it's all about emotions. And then when we look at the Fool card right next to it, you're like, oh, it's about a brand new adventure. And look at how happy the person is. But look, the dog is trying to warn it. Maybe there's a warning that comes along with this. Maybe the warning has to do with the 10 of Wands. Maybe there's going to be a whole lot of work, maybe more work that needs to go into it that we anticipate. Perhaps this is something that we need to look into prior for us to just jump head first off the cliff. Again, now, this is just an example of how you can interpret these cards and how the gut feeling of maybe how you took the interpretation of the card text of the Ace of Cups can be interwoven with some of the stuff that you saw on the picture of the Ace of Wands, and then maybe how you're getting the overall message from the 10 of Wands. Again, everything just kind of connects together, and you have to just pick up a little bit of everything for you to put the whole story together. And sometimes you have to bounce around between the different cards with a lot of the meanings to start making sense to you. But at the end, it is about your gut feeling and what your intuition tells you, because that will not steer you wrong. And then just to kind of tie things off with this very first part, now that we've gone through the very basic and essentials of it, practice makes perfect. If for some reason you are drawing cards and the previous 3 steps that I just mentioned are not really resonating with you for this particular reading, it's okay. You can take a break. Perhaps you need to remove some sort of distraction. Perhaps there is something that's a little bit off about your personal space that you need to fix. Perhaps there's something else on your mind. Perhaps there's a bias trying to come in and trying to work into what your reading is trying to say. So I want you to just be patient with yourself. And if this first round does not go as smoothly as you want, perhaps give it another shot at a later time and just come back to it. And perhaps you just need to redraw, maybe ask a different question, maybe rephrase it a little bit different, and just take another gander at it. Again, everyone can do and pick up tarot as long as you follow these steps. You cannot go wrong with how you're going to move forward. When you do tarot readings like this and you're starting off, it will be a really good idea to also jot these messages down and the spreads that you're using and the cards that you are pulling on a tarot journal, which I will cover at the next part of the series once we're done going through all the readings. Because if down the road you want to reference back your notes when you have more of an objective mind, it has been a few weeks or a few months and you come back into the reading, you can check what kind of cards you had, what the reading was about, and double check on the accuracy of it. But we will cover that later on. But the most important thing right now is that you follow those very important 3 steps when you actually do the reading, after you have done all the prep work that we have talked about earlier in this video and in past videos as well. Just to recap, number 1, you have to make sure that you have the right mood and the right space for what you're going to do. Number 2, make sure that you have a correct question as you go about shuffling your cards. Make sure that your questions are not steered into a negative outcome or a negative course. Rather, do look at it on a positive lens and phrase your questions positively for what you're looking to have. And then number 3, make sure that when you do your readings, you go off from anything that stands out to you about the pictures, anything that has to do with the card meaning. And with these tips, I think you will be very well off. And I'm actually pretty excited to see maybe how many of you resonated with this, how many of you have different suggestions on maybe how to go about tackling down the very core essentials of how to do this reading. Just so I recap again, on the next video, I'm going to cover some things that can add on to your reading when you're going about setting the mood and when you go about doing the readings themselves, on how that can enhance your experience and how you can start to develop your own style as long as you have these core foundations already set for yourself. And so, yeah, this is all I have for today. I really hope everyone really enjoyed this video. If you really are enjoying this content and you want to see more of these guides that I'm going to do, or even some of the deck reviews that I have, please feel free to subscribe to the channel. Just starting to grow, just starting to really get a pulse out there for people if they're finding this kind of content useful to them. I'm mostly using this as a way to just say hi and reach out and get out of my comfort zone as a fellow introvert myself, and just be able to put some positive out there into the world and into the internet space in this very, very small corner of it. So without further ado, maybe I'll see you guys on Twitch, but I'll see you guys next time.